just to run through our objectives for today's webinar, we are going to be covering requirements for a UK expansion worker sponsor license. So essentially, the UK expansion worker category, the worker will need to have a sponsor in the first instance. So we'll deal with that first, essentially just the criteria that's needed for a sponsor license application, what the sponsor will need to show, and various types of documentary evidence that is required for the application. Once the sponsor license is in place, the worker can then apply for their own UK expansion worker visa. So we'll run through that and essentially just detail what the requirements are, what the application process looks like, etc. Then, once we've covered the sponsor license and the worker and what's required there, we'll run through essentially what the category, the UK expansion worker category, the route, what it's actually designed for, when it can come in handy, practical guidance in terms of when it's appropriate to use this category, when it works, if you like, as a workaround, where other categories don't work. So essentially when it can come in handy, essentially. And then we'll sort of end on important considerations. So things to note, if a sponsor or a sponsored worker wants to embark on the expansion worker route, things to consider before actually pursuing the route, and things to understand at the outset so that the sponsor and the applicant can make an informed decision. What about the level 1 user and the key contact? So we've already said for an authorising officer who's based in the UK, they can hold all three roles. If the authorising officer is a worker based in the UK, they must appoint a level 1 user and a key contact who is also to be based in the UK. The authorising officer can appoint themselves as the level 1 user and or the key contact, or another person can fill these roles subject to meeting the eligibility criteria, the eligibility requirements. If, however, the authorising officer is the named person on the sponsor licence and they are an employee of the overseas business, they must also be the level 1 user, and they can also be the key contact. So it's imperative that you choose, essentially, or the business chooses, who they're going to nominate and what that really means for who their level 1 user will be, to have access or immediate access to the sponsor licence.